On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, we were all set to sit here and just go on and on yet again about Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon and how incredibly awesome they are in a dominating win over the Sharks. But the Avs had to go and make a trade during this game, and it's a big one. We got to talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. And with me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. And if you want to get in on the conversation, why would you not? Link is to our subtext and join our subtext chat. It's in the show notes below. Chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this podcast. Yeah, man. Well, big stuff going on for the Avalanche. It was a busy Thursday night. And like I said, we're just going to talk about a game. We're going to talk about a nice, comfy win for the Avs heading into what's going to be a busy Friday just across the league with the trade deadline. And the Avs had to get a jump on that. This is like the third jump that they've got on the trade deadline with, going back to the Mikko trade and now the Lindgren trade. And now this. The Avs do, like I said, we do these little quick videos that we put together. And I said in that video, this is something that the Avalanche don't do a lot of. I think they try to do this stuff, but it usually doesn't pan out. And that's get the biggest name in the trade of the trade season, and that's Brock Nelson. So just to go over the deal, the Avs get Brock Nelson, William Dufour, and they from the Islanders, and they send to the Islanders Callum Ritchie, a 2026 or 2027 first rounder, a conditional third rounder in 2028, and Oliver Shillington, who was flipped right away and sent to the Ducks. I don't even think he boarded the plane.
Nope.
No, that was quick. So the big names here, obviously, Brock Nelson is the biggest name here. And we'll do this, what we got, what we gave away. Let's start with Brock Nelson because, like you always say with trades, does it make your team better? Unquestionably, yes. This makes your team better. We'll get to what went out in a minute, but what's your take?
Oh, Chris, it's no shock. Like I've been down on this team a couple times this season, and you mentioned like how the Avs have gotten in on the trade deadline kind of early. I go even farther back to the goalie position.
The goalie position, yeah.
Like they really got the dominoes going real early.
They've been doing it all year, man.
They addressed every issue this team has had when it comes to goalies. Fixed it. What are we going to do about Mikko? Fixed it. You got Natchez, you got Drury. Depth, and honestly, Natchez fits right in with this system. And, hey, we'll talk about it in a minute. The power play looks outstanding without Mikko Rantanen. Continue to keep going. The trades that they have made, Lindgren, I think he's fitting in just fine. He's doing just fine. And now, Brock Nelson. This takes the Avalanche from the what is this team to this team is for real. They are being built to make noise this year. We'll talk about the future later. You can all get in a crystal ball, shine it up however you want. But this year, it's clear they're not waiting around and just kind of hoping and wishing everything works out. Yeah. They're making this team the best possible team they could put on the ice to make some noise.
Well, you have to look at the West. I mean, the West is it's going to be a gauntlet this year. And the Avs just have to look at where they are in the standings and say, this isn't good enough for, if we want to make a serious run, if we want to just be happy this year, making the playoffs and just throwing caution to the wind, hey, see what happens in the playoffs. They could have done that. You are getting that vibe from Chris MacFarland that no, we're not happy, and we have to make this team better. And those are the moves that he has done all season long. Like I've never seen a team be this active throughout the course of a season, not just a trade deadline, throughout the course of a season than the Avalanche have been this year. And it goes back to the starting with the goalies.
Mm.
And that right there kind of just told you that, we're not just going to sit back and see how things go. And hopefully, because the season's long, hopefully everything just works itself out. And with every move, even with the Mikko one, we're not going to take the chance. I thought they would. Run the chance and because, he makes your team better. But they were like, no, we're not going to do that. And they went out and made that move. And now with this one, so like this is the quintessential likely rental for Brock Nelson. And it seems like the Avalanche are okay with that. They're saying like, no, he makes us better. And he also helps us compete in a very difficult Western Conference, both divisions. The teams at the top in both divisions are very good, and they are not going to be easy to beat. So he is putting the best team possible together to go and compete with those teams. And Brock Nelson, without a doubt, helps you do that. And are they done? I don't know. We'll get to what's going to happen maybe a little bit later, because we do have a game to talk about. I don't know how much of this game we're actually going to talk about because it was dominant. But for right now, you have to be happy with what you brought in. I think you have to be happy.
And see, and Avalanche fans need to realize this. We have gotten accustomed to, for far too long, hoping and wishing that, Martin Kaut works out, or Tyson Jost works out, with Georgie works out. Like, you keep giving all these chances to, I hope this works out. I hope this works out. Maybe if this happens. We're done with this. We're done with the hoping and wishing and wanting. And maybe if things go good, maybe he could. That's why, like, you mentioned it kind of softly there, but this move kind of speaks loudly to Casey Middlestat. Like, if this team wants to make a push, do you want to have? We're done with the projects. We're done with the. Is this possibly going to work? Is this little experiment going to work? They're putting a team together that they know night in, night out is the best roster team to make a push, not just get to the playoffs, go through the playoffs. They don't want to just get to the playoffs, because if they wanted to, they would have kept the team just as it is, been fine, kumbaya. But no, they want to go farther. They're tired of getting bounced. They know they have a window of superstar talent who showed out in this Sharks game that we'll get to at some point. But we'll talk about like the pieces going out, but they're done with the hopes and wishes and possibilities and great scenarios for this to work out. No, they are putting the best team on the ice from the goalie position forward and capitalizing on Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon's possible best year that they've had.
And when you have, and I don't want to come down on a team like Ottawa or even like Detroit, but for them, it's like, yeah, like I feel like they making the playoffs for them is a step forward, is a step in the right direction. It's not just you roll over once you get there. Like you're going to try to win every game that you're playing while you're in the playoffs. But if they just like sneak in and get into the playoffs, like they've been out of it for so long, that's a positive for them. For a team like the Avalanche, and for a team like Florida or Tampa Bay or even Vegas, as much as I despise them, it's more than that. It's like just getting to the playoffs is not enough. And that's like we've been saying in this segment, like you can see that's the thought of the front office as well. And when I said the West is going to be a gauntlet to go through, as we're recording this,
did it happen?
It hasn't happened yet, but Elliot Friedman is reporting that there is a lot of talk between Carolina and Dallas for Mikko Rantanen to go to the Dallas Stars. So now this move makes even more sense for the Avalanche to pull this off, because Dallas if this happens, and if by the time you're listening to this Friday morning, it could have already happened. I don't know. I can't imagine Carolina, if they trade him, they would trade him to an East Coast team. Cannot imagine that happening, because why would you trade him to an East Coast team that you might have to play in the playoffs? That's just dumb. Move them back to the West, and if you play them at all, it'll be in the Stanley Cup final. But if this happens, then yeah, like the Avs needed to go out and make a trade like this to bring in someone like Brock Nelson, who clearly makes your team better. Now, what you sent out, you sent out draft picks, a first rounder, a third rounder, and your number one prospect. And I know you said it's the Avs struggle to develop guys, and that has been true for a while. But was Callum Ritchie the outlier when we talk about that? So let's get our first break in, and when we come back on the other side, let's talk about what the Avalanche gave up here. And like I said, Callum Ritchie is the big name, so we'll talk about that. And then yes, we will get to the dominant performance from the Colorado Avalanche over the San Jose Sharks. We'll do all that next. But when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And we are getting closer, Kyle. I know I keep turning to the NBA, but we're getting closer. Didn't they played a game the other day? Did they not?
I know
your boys in
they dropped. Yeah, they dropped one to A&M, Texas A&M,
and they didn't play after that.
I don't believe they have.
Okay, because I'm trying to keep an eye on them for you, but
hey, they're the easy #1 pick this year. They are a very good basketball team.
So stick around for that definitely, and sign up for FanDuel because the NCAA tournament is where you want to be if you're over at FanDuel. So right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets, and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so Brock Nelson is what you bring in. Callum Ritchie is what goes out. And when you're a franchise that's been struggling to really kind of have just that minor system of just throwing guys out that they all work out, like that hasn't been happening for the Avs. Callum Ritchie started the season at the pro level, played I think it was 7 games. I don't even think he made it to the 9.
Yep,
And then you could tell it just wasn't there. But you're like, okay, but that's fine. Send him back to the OHL. Let him get another year of seasoning there, which he's been doing great, and see what happens next year. And I was looking forward to that because of that very reason, because you don't have a lot of guys. You have 3 guys, maybe 4 guys that you really are looking forward to, like maybe making a dent in the future. And he was your clear-cut #1 prospect, without a doubt. And he is gone. Like, he's the big name that goes to the Islanders. Is it tough to really kind of say, I don't want to say it was too much, but is it too early to really say that because you don't know how the season is going to end? If the season ends with the Stanley Cup, this was the greatest move that the Avalanche could have made. If it doesn't, I still don't think you can really rate this because you really have to see how Ritchie pans out, which might not be for years.
All right, I'm just gonna be real. Like I tweeted it out when this move happened. Like, let's Avs fans, come on. This is Callum Ritchie, 27th pick in 2023. Played 7 games, had 1 goal. Ironically enough, against the Islanders. I don't care really what he's going to do in the future. He's not going to be generational. Like, we keep expecting development to be the equivalent of a Cale Makar. Where's Newhook? Where's Justin Barron? There's Tyson Jost? So many potential futures when they get developed, what they're going to be. And it just doesn't pan out that way because the Avs just are not that great. Because I hate to break it to you, the Avs have been good for a little while. So when they're picking in the first round, it's low. They're not getting the upper generational talent. They're getting lower picks. So I know, yes, it's a fresh face that, yes, ideally you would like to develop. But I mean, if you can make moves like this where it's not affecting your roster, the cap space, you're not having to move a lot of the Ross Coltons, the Josh Mansons, the Miles Woods. If you can keep those on the team and you could trade away a potential future, we haven't had a a future. Like, other than Cale Makar, there has not been that guy you develop. And when it comes to getting a Stanley Cup, guess what? You're going to have a bad first round pick whenever you do have a draft pick. You could go acquire, and put together pieces with a cap going up much easier and with better chances than the development system has proven to work for the Avalanche. I know everybody wants to say, oh, he had so much potential. Brock Nelson gives you potential. The Stanley Cup gives you more potential. I'm not going to get upset over a possibility and a prayer, because that is all we have done as Avalanche fans, from Georgie to Newhook to all insert player name here that no longer plays here. We're not going to hope. We're going to look at the established.
Yeah.
And that's where we should be as Avalanche fans.
I mean, it's going to be an interesting offseason because, the last two guys you brought in probably are not going to be with you next year, would be my guess. I can't imagine they would sign either one of these guys, because it might be maybe Nelson. I mean, Nelson's on the downside of his career. I'm not say like he's, 40 years old, but he's 33, 34. Yeah. So he's not going to command a ton, but that's for the offseason. But the fact is you brought in two of the guys, the most recent guys you brought in are on expiring contracts. The Avs don't do that. They don't typically do that for bigger names. Of course they do it, if you're going to get depth guys and stuff like that. But they don't you don't see them do this a lot. So this is kind of like a new era in how the Avalanche are really kind of navigating the trade market. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see how they do that. But for Richie, yes, he was a late round pick, but that he fell because of injuries. And if that never happened, many people thought he was a top 14, even top 12 pick. So the Avalanche were kind of lucky to get him, and you have to, worry about the injuries and doesn't really, and there was a lot of concussions, I believe. And you were hoping that if he overcame that, he was, and he could be that top 14, top 12 guy, you got a steal. Now he's on to the Islanders, and the Islanders are hoping that, he is the steal, because if he is, you've had Brock Nelson for how long, and now Callum Ritchie can be part of your club for maybe that long. Who knows? But it's tough, Kyle, because it's you can revisit this when the season's over and say, how did it go? And you still have to hold out and say, like, okay, we have to see how Ritchie pans out as well. But that might be 5 years down the road, and maybe the Avalanche do win a cup within those 5 years. And you're like, okay, so I get it. Like, I really, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that stings. The first round pick is what it is. I don't like giving up first round picks,
I don't either.
But I understand that this is part of the business when you're a team that's going for the cup. You can't have it both ways. You can't stockpile first round picks and really be expected to go really far and go win a Stanley Cup, because those are valuable, clearly. And the teams that are wanting to get where you are need picks. And that's what you have to give up when you're a team in the Avalanche situation. So I get it. I don't like it on the surface. It's funny. Like, I don't like it because the Avs, I don't like it that from a guy that the Avs don't even have yet. It kind of stings a little bit, but I'm okay with it in the grand scheme of it, because this does give the Avalanche the best opportunity to go compete and win another cup and compete with the big boys in the West, because you have to be a good team. The West is going to be a gauntlet, an absolute gauntlet.
All you got to boil it down to is who helps you win a Stanley Cup this year, Callum Ritchie or Brock Nelson. There's your answer. Move on.
It is. It definitely is. I'm trying to see if there's any more updates on this Mikko Rantanen thing, but
because
it might be a little bit too late to complete it, but I don't know.
While you're looking that up, like, I get he had potential and promise, but so did everybody else that the Avs have had to trade out. And Kovalenko, we saw him in this game. Mm-hmm. Where's that impact? That huge promise that you were expecting when he came in. Well, I mean,
yeah,
you're going to have the same thing with Callum Ritchie. How is that going to hurt his development? And then that's going to be all. You can't have it both ways. Like, when Kovalenko was traded out of here, everybody's like, oh, all that potential. all this, all that. I haven't heard a word out of Kovalenko.
Because Blackwood's just been lights out.
Yeah,
So
that's
you kind
the
of forget
thing.
about that quickly. Everybody thinks they have the best prospects. When they're in your prospect pool, like everybody loves the prospects you have, and you don't ever want to get rid of them. And how many have the Avalanche got rid of that, like you're saying, that haven't really, where you're like, oh man, we had him and we had to trade him away for such and such.
Callum Ritchie had 7 games to prove himself, and
Yeah.
it wasn't there. It wasn't at that level, and he's been back down. I understand he's got all this promise in the world, but so has everybody else that we've had to move on from.
Right.
This is just part of the business, and guess what? If Brock Nelson will help you win, and probably another move that'll be made by the time you're listening to this episode, don't cry over Callum Ritchie. Be optimistic on where this team is going, because we looked so bad at the beginning of the year. Where they're sitting now, complete 180.
The latest from Friedman, uncertain about exact details and the possibility of an extension at this time, but we are headed down this road. The West Conference is going to be brutal. So it seems like Mikko Rantanen is going to be part of the Dallas Stars. What universe are we living in, Kyle Sullivan? I never thought that would ever happen. I never thought Mikko Rantanen would play for anybody other than the Avalanche. But wow.
Mikko Rantanen's got a poison party. This is a fascinating story around Mikko Rantanen. This is
don't sign an extension. Just go play with them for the rest of the season, and then go sign. Go back on the East Coast or something like that. Just don't sign an 8-year extension with the Dallas Stars, Mikko. Please don't do that.
Oh, a new rival.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? All right. Let's talk about this game for a little bit. And there was a game. And then we'll kind of touch on what we're expecting on this Friday. So we'll do that next. Avalanche scored 7 goals, by the way.
Not 10.
And they almost had 8. They had 1 taken away. I don't know. I'm not going to go there because they won 7-3. So whatever.
Let's complain about this game.
There's nothing to complain. Well, maybe too many penalties is what you want to complain about.
Good Lord.
But it kind of evened out. Like I think all those penalties were in the first and second period. Was even any in the third. Third period, you're just kind of going through the motions in the third when you're up by that much.
The way the Avalanche power play looked during that game, I say give them more. They were 3 for 4 on the power play. Like, come on.
Yeah, they gave the Sharks 5 power plays, and the Sharks only scored on 2 of them. But yeah, man, that pass from Nashis to Drouin on that power play. I know we're talking about Mikko Rantanen. I'm not like knocking Mikko Rantanen here, but that play does not happen if Mikko Rantanen is on this team. Why? Because Nashis was on the same side as Nathan McKinnon. Mikko Rantanen didn't do that. You had your positions and you stayed there. And you see what this team has become with their power play with Marty Nashis in the fold, because he just goes in many different spots. And where he was parked like right kind of goalie line extended basically, and just threw an. I was for a split second, I was like, don't throw that pass. But it was like one of those extra passes.
Same thing.
It just getting the too cute, like too many passes type of thing. But Georgiev was going for a split, and it went right through his legs. Beautiful pass. But no, the power play is just, it's clicking right now. And how we always say, like, you want to be playing your best hockey now, even maybe 2 weeks ago, and have that flow into the postseason. If you can keep this going with your power play heading into the postseason, good Lord, that's where you want to be.
Yeah, it's night and day. And I know everybody was crying when Mikko left, but you can tell there's a difference in this game. Mikko brought you something, yes, but Nashis brings you a whole different dynamic that the Avs really build on. And you see that with how the power play is improved on top of everything else, how like that forward line, the tempo constantly moves. Same thing with that power play. It's a night and day difference. Yes, Mikko gave you a certain aspect, but what this new Avalanche looks like, I like this a little bit more.
Love it. The game started with like just injuries all over the place. And you had who went out? There was
Lindgren,
well, Lindgren
Drury.
took a nasty hit. Well, no, Lindgren got hurt twice. It was
Mhm.
something that he was just hopping around like right in front of Blackwood, and he struggled to get off the ice, but he came back, and then he took a
Lehkonen.
hit to the head later on in the game, which looked ugly. I don't think it was. I think he was kind of bent over. He wasn't really, from the one replay I saw, it didn't really look like he was aware of his surroundings. But that is, I mean, it seems like he's okay from that. Thank God. Yes, Lehkonen got hurt. Drury got hurt, right?
Mhm.
Drury got hurt. I think Drouin for a second looked like he was bent. It was just like, guys, the trade deadline's tomorrow. We can't have all you guys out and be making all of these moves to make up for if you're going to be out long term. Please don't be out long term. So, but as the game went on, this is a game. This is what we want to see from the Avalanche when they're playing a lesser team. Just go dominate them, and you got that really from everybody. And Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar in particular, they were just men possessed. A 2-goal, 4-assist, 6-point night for Cale Makar, and a 2-goal, 3-assist, 5-point night from Nathan MacKinnon. 11 points from your two superstars. You are not going to lose when those two guys are dialed in like that.
No, if you got Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar on Hattie Watch, good things are happening. And again, we talk about this all the time whenever Cale Makar or Nathan MacKinnon hit this gear. It feels like they have 3 more gears to go. This did not feel labored or like they were trying. This was effortless. And this is what you wanted to see.
And it's just, I mean, it probably was kind of coming to them effortless because the Sharks just are not on their level, and that's okay. Like they're trying, and they're going to be there hopefully in a few years. But you've seen this from other teams. Like we keep going back to Chicago, and how they have struggled against Chicago. Man, that's just a matchup thing. We talked about that all the time with the Arizona Coyotes in the past. It's just a matchup thing. What these Sharks have, they just can't. They don't have it. They don't have it. Where for whatever reason, some other teams, like Chicago for this year anyway, and the Coyotes of yesteryear, they could, and the Avs just exploited it and really could just do whatever they wanted to do, and they just don't match up well with them.
Well, I bring it even closer in comparison. The Pittsburgh game just the other night. That team had no hope. There's no hope for the postseason. They're just out there having a good time. They kept it close for a while because there's no direction. They're basically playing beer league hockey, and they kept it close until the Avalanche put them away. The Sharks literally started the season knowing there is no hope for this team. You have a future in Celebrini, but they get out there and they know they're not playing for the postseason, but they don't mind breaking your heart and playing a little extra physical. And you saw that with the penalties and all the extracurriculars that were leading to Avalanche being bent over. And guess what? The Avalanche didn't lose their cool, didn't lose their direction, and overcame that. They didn't play down to it. They kept doing what they had to do. They stuck to their mission and won the game. Those are 2 positive performances. The third period against Pittsburgh and the entire 60 minutes against San Jose. They did not compromise. They stayed on their mission. And this is something we did not see from the Avalanche earlier this season when they would unplug and just lose the game and not care.
Yeah, your first 4 goals for the Avalanche were of the special teams variety. Your first goal of the game was a shorthanded goal from Kiviranta. And then you got a power play from Makar, the one from Drouin, and then Marty Nisha started the second 3 seconds in to the power play. That's got to be a record for the Avs. It has to. Can you score? I mean, yeah. Can you score a goal from a face-off in less than 3 seconds? I mean, maybe you can get it to 2 if it's a fluke type of thing, but that's got to be a franchise record, I would think. But they looked good. So they're continuing to be perfect on this homestand. Tough one that is Saturday night, I believe, against Toronto. So let's keep this perfect homestand going.
And Nate's point streak.
Yeah, what's that up? 17 games? 18 games. So that continues. So, and you'll probably see Brock Nelson on that Saturday game as well. Who maybe won't we see on that Saturday? Like, just kind of go back to the trade thing for a minute, and then we'll get to our sound check. what are we expecting here on the final day of the trade season? What are we expecting on Friday? Does this put the writing on the wall for Casey Middlestat? Do they just keep him around and put him on a third line for the rest of the season and then maybe address this trade thing in the offseason with him? Like, what do we do here?
If I told you before the season the Avalanche would be paying 5 point something for a 3C, you would say I'm crazy and
Not
never
ideal.
you would mute my mic for the rest of my life.
No.
They're not going to do that. I do believe Casey Middlestat is on the move. Where? I don't know. It's going to probably be something out east. If this
I don't think they're really tied to that with him.
Well,
this isn't like Mikko Rantanen. You know what I mean?
You know they've been kicking tires with Pittsburgh camp. If there's something depth-wise they want out of Pittsburgh, I know there have been calls and talks, but I hate it. But business is business, and this move, kind of the quiet part was Casey Middlestat is not our 2C anymore.
Yeah, I mean, then what do you do in the offseason? You have that glaring hole again. You know what I mean? You got to go figure it out. Yeah, and I mean the cap is going up, so I mean there is the possibility of that happening. So we'll just have to wait and see. But he could definitely be on the block. I mean, he is on the block. He could definitely be on the move, I should say. Miles Wood didn't play in this game.
Mm-hmm.
He was a healthy scratch. So when I heard the Nelson trade, I'm like, oh, maybe that's who's going the other way. Clearly was not. But the fact that he was held back kind of speaks volumes. He could be a guy on the move. I'm interested to see. I mean, Richie was a prospect. Are there other prospects that could be gone tomorrow? We're Jean-Luc Foudy guys. He's still hanging around in the AHL.
Yeah.
I mean, for a depth move, could he be a guy that goes Oscar Olausen? You know, he's still hanging on to that first round pick title. You know, I don't know how much longer that can really be attached to him in terms of value. Maybe he's on the move. I don't know. But, you know, you have, you know, I mean, Gulyayev, God, if you get rid of him, I mean, that's your top two guys you're getting rid of in the same trade season. I don't know, man.
Unless you find a team that is on the wild card looking to make a move, then you take a Miles Wood, a Casey Middlestat, and then pluck their prospects, and then replenish it that. Like,
yeah,
you can't be healthy scratching. You got a surplus. You have to do something about the Casey Middlestat problem. And if you're going to get like another depth piece, a 3C, maybe another winger, bring that in and a prospect, and here's Miles Wood and Casey Middlestat. This could push you into the wild card spot. You could work on it that way, but think of it a little reverse. Like you might have given up a prospect, but you can go get one too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's nothing that's going to help you immediately. And I don't know if the Avs want. I mean, if they do get prospects, it'd have to be in addition to guys that are helping you now. I think you're just going to get like send out Miles Wood for a prospect that you're going to use next year. I don't see that happening. But Brandon Tanev better be on the Avalanche.
Oh my God, that's all I want.
I mean, if they make that work, and I know he's a winger, but
they're already going to retain salary. They've already announced like whoever takes him. Like who says that? Like, hey, call us. We will trade him and retain. Just phone's right here.
I mean, please, him. And I've heard Zegras is the name. I know you love that. I think his number is way too high. So there's got to be retention there. But
we'll basically gave them Shillington.
That's true. That's true. So I don't. But you know, down the center is where the Avs need the most help. Not so much in the wings, but Tanev is too good to pass up, in my opinion, for this team. So it's going to be a fun day. All right. So last thing we're going to do is our sound check and then wrap this bad boy up. This is where Kyle and I pick one song each that summarizes the most recent game. These songs go up on a playlist over on Spotify, which you can follow along for. Just search LOA Soundcheck. Volume number 4 is what these songs go on. So what do you got for this one, sir?
Going into the 90s grunge.
Mm-hmm.
Going to an old favorite, Alice in Chains.
Mm.
This one works twofold for the trade and the game. We Die Young from Alice in Chains. You gave up your touted future they don't care about the future. They don't care about prospects anymore.
Yeah.
They're done trying to say, yeah, we develop talent. No, they know they can't do it. We're not going to pretend like we can. We die young. And hey, the Sharks, what? That was a lunatic stat. Like 7th youngest team. Like ESPN was really grabbing at straws to make the Sharks look relevant. But hey, they love to say they're the 7th youngest team. Good job, Sharks. You got beat 7-3.
ESPN loves doing that. The young guy that, you know, when you're drafted first overall, you're going to a terrible team. So ESPN does their best to try to polish the turd of the terrible teams because they have highly touted prospects on their team. It's kind of funny to watch all the time. But
it owned me. The Brock Nelson trade goes down. They come back from commercial. Did you know Timu Solani played for the Avs and the Sharks? I'm like, guys, there's something else going on here.
So where I'm going with mine, you went 90s grunge. By the way, Nutshell is maybe one of my favorite songs of all time.
My God. I could do a whole 30-minute podcast about that song.
It is just perfection. You're going 90s grunge. I'm going like 80s, late 80s hair metal. And not even, no, I shouldn't say metal. It is not metal. Stricken that from the record. Hair, rock. Whatever.
Glam rock.
Yes. Because who did the Avs just trade for?
Brock
Nelson. So I'm going with the band Nelson.
Oh.
And the song is I Can Hardly Wait.
Hey.
Because come on. Yes. Once you get over, we got rid of Callum Ritchie, like our number one prospect. You have a team, and maybe even after when Friday's over, you even have a better team. Like that is the moves that are yet to come, which hopefully maybe there is another one or two. Will make this team and if they do nothing, this team as it stands right now can compete for Stanley Cup, and you cannot tell me otherwise. They can. They absolutely can. So if they go out and make another move, like hopefully make Brandon Tanev, hey, we'll see. It just makes me feel like I'm starting to get the feels for playoff hockey. So I Can Hardly Wait by Nelson for the Brock Nelson.
There you go. Send Middlestead to Seattle and get Brandon Tanev, and then pick up Mikko Rantanen on rental. We've already proven it doesn't bother us. And at least he doesn't go to Dallas.
Well, if the Avs, if it wasn't against the rules to bring him back, maybe they would, but they can't because money was retained. So
who cares about the rules?
Let's
call up Vegas. How do you get around this?
Exactly. Help us out. All right. Well, that's going to be it. We'll probably be back after the Saturday game against Toronto. We'll probably do a show after that on Saturday night. So stay tuned for that one. And a lot to get to. A lot of Gabe Landeskog stuff going on. We even talked about the documentary that he's going to do. The interview that he did on Altitude was really good. So we'll have some more Landeskog talk next week. So that will wrap it up, everybody. What a night in Colorado, and Friday is going to be fun. So thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I'm Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And maybe, just maybe, you are 24 hours closer to Sidney Crosby being a Colorado Avalanche.
This is what I'm looking forward to, the deadline being over.